Standing beneath the towering stones of Stonehenge, you might notice something strange. The wind doesn't just blow past these ancient pillars, it sings. A low, resonant hum fills the air, as if the monument itself is vibrating with secrets. Now, picture the Great Pyramid of Giza, where even the softest whisper seems to ripple through its corridors with eerie precision. These aren't just coincidences. What if sound wasn't just a byproduct of these ancient structures, but the very key to their creation? For centuries, we've marveled at the precision of ancient monuments, asking how civilizations without modern tools achieved such feats. But what if we've been missing a crucial piece of the puzzle? A piece that isn't carved in stone, but woven into the air itself. Across the globe, from the echoing chambers of Mayan temples to the haunting acoustics of Malta's Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, sound seems to play a mysterious role in ancient architecture. Could these civilizations have possessed knowledge of acoustics so advanced it allowed them to manipulate stone with precision we struggle to replicate today? Some researchers believe sound waves might have been used to levitate massive blocks, align structures with celestial events, or even communicate with the divine. Others suggest these sonic properties were intentional, designed to create sacred spaces where rhythm and resonance bridged the gap between the earthly and the spiritual. The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes. Sound wasn't just background noise for our ancestors. It was a tool, a guide, perhaps even a language. So how did ancient builders harness something as intangible as sound to shape the physical world? And why does this idea challenge everything we thought we knew about their capabilities? In this video, we'll journey through the latest discoveries in archaeology and physics, piecing together a theory that's as thrilling as it is revolutionary. We'll explore how echoes might have been used as ancient blueprints, how chanting could have moved mountains, and why these structures still hum with energy thousands of years later. This isn't just a story about stones and shadows. It's about the invisible forces that shaped history. By the end, you'll never look at these ancient wonders the same way again. The past is speaking to us. It's time to listen. The hum of a tuning fork demonstrates something remarkable. When vibrations hit the right frequency, they can make nearby objects tremble in sync. Now scale that up. Imagine a chorus of voices chanting in perfect harmony, their combined sound waves pulsing through the earth, causing massive stone blocks to shudder and shift as if weightless. This isn't science fiction, it's physics. Resonance, the phenomenon where matching frequencies amplify energy, could explain how ancient cultures manipulated materials that would stump modern engineers. Take the massive granite blocks in Egypt's Ceremonial, each weighing up to 100 tons, precision cut and placed with gaps thinner than a credit card. Traditional tools alone couldn't achieve such accuracy, but sound might have. Experiments show that high-frequency vibrations can reduce friction, making even the heaviest stones glide across surfaces like air hockey pucks. But resonance wasn't just a construction tool, it was a spiritual compass. In Chichen Itza, a 3,000-year-old temple in Peru, labyrinthine corridors amplify the sound of a conch shell trumpet into a roaring, otherworldly echo. Archaeologists found that these passages align with specific frequencies, creating disorienting effects that may have induced trance states during rituals. Similarly, Ireland's Newgrange, a tomb older than the pyramids, channels the rising sun's light into its chamber only on the winter solstice. But recent studies reveal its narrow passage also amplifies certain frequencies, suggesting the builders designed it not just to capture light, but to transform sound into something sacred. The most compelling evidence lies in the materials themselves. Many ancient monuments were built with stones containing high quartz content, a mineral that vibrates under pressure, producing electric charges in a phenomenon called the piezoelectric effect. Could builders have intentionally chosen these rocks because they sang more easily? At the Temple of the Feathered Serpent in Teotihuacan, researchers detected ultrasonic frequencies emanating from the ground, as if the structure itself were still resonating with forgotten energy. Whether used to levitate stones, commune with deities, or map the stars, one thing is clear: sound wasn't just part of these designs, it was the blueprint. And as modern science catches up, we're finally beginning to hear what the ancients have been trying to tell us. Deep inside the Great Pyramid's granite-lined King's Chamber, something extraordinary happens when you clap your hands. The sound doesn't just echo, it lingers, vibrating through the walls for an unnaturally long time, as if the stones themselves are holding onto the noise. This isn't just an architectural quirk. Engineers who have studied the chamber's acoustics describe it as a near-perfect resonance box, with frequencies aligning so precisely that even whispers become amplified. But here's the puzzle. How could a civilization without modern measuring devices craft a space where sound behaves in such calculated ways? One startling theory suggests the pyramid's builders didn't just understand acoustics, they weaponized them. Experiments with infrasound, frequencies too low for human ears to detect, show these vibrations can affect matter in bizarre ways. At certain intensities, they reduce friction, making heavy objects easier to move. Could teams of workers have chanted or drummed at specific frequencies, turning the desert floor into a frictionless highway for those 2.5-ton blocks? It sounds like magic, but the science holds up. When researchers tested scaled-down models of the pyramid's passages, they found certain tones created standing waves strong enough to suspend small objects in midair. Now imagine that effect multiplied across the Giza Plateau, with hundreds of voices harmonizing to make stone dance. Yet the pyramid's sonic secrets might go beyond construction. The so-called air shafts leading from the king's chamber don't actually reach the outside, a detail that's baffled archaeologists for decades. But acoustic scans reveal something unexpected. These narrow channels are tuned to specific frequencies, like the pipes of a colossal organ. During ceremonies, priests chanting or blowing horns could have filled the chamber with cascading echoes, creating the illusion of voices emerging from the walls themselves. For worshippers, it would have felt like the gods were speaking directly through the stone. Perhaps most intriguing is the pyramid's relationship with the Earth's own vibrations. Modern studies show the structure sits atop a geological feature that generates natural infrasound, a steady, subsonic hum rising from deep underground. Was this intentional? Some researchers believe the pyramid acts like a tuning fork, harmonizing with the planet's frequency to create a space where sound, architecture, and geology become one. Whether used to move mountains of stone or commune with the divine, the Great Pyramid stands as proof that our ancestors didn't just build with rock, they orchestrated silence into song. Standing in the center of Stonehenge on a quiet morning, you might notice something peculiar. Your own footsteps seem to reverberate differently depending on where you stand. Some spots absorb sound like thick carpet, while others send your voice bouncing between the stones in cascading whispers. This isn't just random acoustics. The layout of these massive sarcons appears deliberately designed to manipulate sound in ways that still baffle scientists. When researchers from the Royal College of Art mapped the site's acoustic properties, they discovered something astonishing. The circle acts like a prehistoric soundboard, with certain areas amplifying low frequencies while filtering out higher pitches. Imagine chanting or drumming here thousands of years ago. The very ground would have thrummed beneath your feet, turning human voices into something almost supernatural. But why go to such lengths? One compelling theory suggests Stonehenge wasn't just a temple, but a Neolithic instrument. When struck with mallets, the blue stones, the smaller, inner rocks transported over 150 miles from Wales, produce metallic, gong-like tones. Archaeoacoustics experts like Paul Devereux argue these stones were chosen not just for their appearance, but for their sonic properties. In experiments, teams found that the arrangement creates interference patterns, where sound waves collide to produce phantom echoes that seem to come from nowhere. For ancient worshippers, this could have created the illusion of spirits speaking through the stones themselves. Even more intriguing, the heel stone, the solitary monolith outside the main circle, acts as a natural sound mirror, reflecting voices back to the center with eerie clarity. The acoustic design may have served practical purposes too. Some anthropologists propose the site functioned as an ancient communication hub, where coded drumbeats or chants could travel for miles across the open Salisbury Plain. Others point to the alignment with solstices, suggesting the soundscape was part of a larger celestial calendar, a way to hear the changing seasons through shifting echoes as sunlight struck the stones at different angles. Then there's the theory linking Stonehenge to nearby burial mounds, where low-frequency resonance could have induced trance states during funeral rites, blurring the line between the living and the dead. What's undeniable is that the builders understood something profound about the marriage of stone and sound. Modern attempts to replicate the structure's acoustics fall short, hinting at lost knowledge of vibration and geometry. Whether used for rituals, communication, or communion with the unseen, Stonehenge stands as a testament to humanity's ancient obsession with the power of sound, a power so potent it could turn circles of rock into portals to another world. The next time you see an image of those weathered stones, remember, their true magic might not be in what they show us, but in what they let us hear. High atop the slopes of Mount Parnassus, the Temple of Delphi, wasn't just a place of prophecy, it was a theater of sound. Visitors climbing the sacred path would first hear it, a low, persistent hum rising from the earth itself, growing louder as they neared the inner sanctum. Ancient accounts describe how priestesses, seated above a fissure venting mysterious gases, would tremble as unseen forces seemed to speak through them. But what if the famous oracle's trances weren't just chemical, but vibrational? Recent studies of the site reveal something startling. The temple's foundation rests directly over two intersecting fault lines, creating a natural amplifier for seismic vibrations. These geological speakers could have transformed subtle tremors into audible frequencies, bathing the chamber in an eerie resonance that modern acousticians compare to the drone of a didgeridoo. The closer we examine Delphi's design, the more intentional these sonic effects appear. The temple's curved walls and domed interior weren't just aesthetic choices, they functioned like a giant resonance chamber, bouncing sound waves in precise patterns. When researchers recreated the space digitally, they found certain spots intensified specific frequencies, particularly those known to affect brainwave activity. Stand in one corner and whispers from across the room would suddenly become clear. Stand in another and your own voice might seem to split into harmonic overtones. For a petitioner awaiting prophecy, the effect would have been overwhelming. The priestess's voice distorted by echoes, the air vibrating with subterranean hums, the very stones seeming to murmur in response. Perhaps most revealing are the accounts of Plutarch, who served as a priest at Delphi. He wrote of a sweet exhalation rising from the fissure before prophecies, accompanied by sounds like many pipes blowing together. Modern geologists confirm the area emits ethylene gas, known to induce trance states but also infrasound, frequencies below human hearing that can cause dizziness and altered consciousness. Combine these elements and the oracle's power starts to make terrifying sense. A priestess breathing hallucinogenic vapors while her body was bombarded with vibrational energy wouldn't just feel inspired, she'd feel possessed. Yet the greatest mystery isn't how the oracles entered their trances, but what they were listening to. Ancient texts reference a bronze disc suspended in the chamber, vibrating in response to seismic activity. Some researchers believe this wasn't just ritual decoration, it was an ancient seismograph, translating the Earth's movements into audible tones. If true, the priestesses weren't merely interpreting random vibrations, they were decoding a sonic language, treating the planet's tremors as divine speech. From the rumbles of distant earthquakes to the harmonic frequencies of underground water flows, Delphi may have been the ultimate listening device, a place where humanity tuned in to the very pulse of the planet. The legacy of Delphi challenges our assumptions about ancient spirituality. This wasn't primitive superstition, but a sophisticated fusion of geology, acoustics, and neuroscience. When the oracle spoke, it wasn't just a woman's voice echoing through marble halls, it was the mountain itself singing through her. And in that convergence of stone and sound, the ancients found something we're only beginning to understand, that the earth doesn't just move beneath our feet. It speaks. At the base of Chichen Itza's towering pyramid of Kukulkin, a single clap sends something extraordinary rippling through the air, not just an echo, but a high-pitched chirp that cascades down the limestone steps like the call of a mythical bird. This isn't some quirky accident of architecture. Each of the pyramid's 91 steps is precisely angled and spaced to fracture sound waves, transforming a simple hand clap into an uncanny mimicry of the Quetzal, a sacred bird revered by the Maya as the embodiment of Kukulkin, their feathered serpent deity. The effect is so precise, so deliberate, it raises a spine-tingling question. Did the Maya engineer this pyramid not just to be seen, but to sing? Acoustic surveys reveal the pyramid's staircases function like a colossal musical instrument. When sound waves hit the steps, they don't bounce uniformly. Instead, the treads act like a series of tiny reflectors, breaking the noise into rapid-fire pulses that our ears perceive as chirps. The timing between these pulses matches the natural resonance frequency of the Quetzal's cry, a feat requiring an almost impossible understanding of sound physics. Modern engineers struggle to replicate the effect without computer modeling, yet the Maya achieved it centuries before the invention of precise measuring tools. Some researchers argue this couldn't have been accidental, that the pyramid's builders must have used trial and error over generations, fine-tuning each step until the stones themselves seemed to summon their god. But the chirping echo isn't just a party trick of ancient acoustics. During equinoxes, when sunlight slithers down the pyramid's northern staircase to form the illusion of a descending serpent, the chirps grow louder and more frequent, as if the structure is responding to celestial movements. Anthropologists suggest this was no coincidence. The pyramid may have been a multisensory ritual tool, where visual and auditory illusions merged to create the palpable presence of Kukulkin. Worshippers clapping at the base wouldn't just hear the Quetzal's call, they'd witness the serpent's shadow slinking toward them while the very air seemed to vibrate with divine energy. The effect would have been overwhelming, a visceral reminder that the boundary between the human and divine worlds was thinner than a whisper. Even more fascinating is what lies beneath the steps. Recent scans show hidden chambers and tunnels within the pyramid, some aligned to amplify specific frequencies. When archaeologists recreated the chirping effect inside these spaces, they discovered something eerie. The sound doesn't fade normally. Instead, it lingers, bouncing between walls in a way that creates the illusion of movement. as if something unseen is slithering through the darkness. Could these acoustic tricks have been used during ceremonies where priests manipulated sound to simulate the god's presence? Or was the pyramid itself considered a living entity, its voice proof that stone could hold spirit? The mystery deepens when we consider how far the Maya went to control sound in their sacred spaces. Nearby ball courts, with their towering parallel walls, produce strange audio effects. Whispers from one end carry clearly to the other, while shouts seem to warp and distort. At the Temple of the Warriors, a clap generates echoes that mimic the patter of rainfall, a sacred sound in drought-prone Yucatan. Each structure feels like a piece of some grand sonic puzzle, a testament to a civilization that didn't just build monuments, but tuned them like instruments. What's clear is that the Maya's relationship with sound wasn't merely practical, it was profound. They didn't just understand acoustics, they weaponized them, using vibration and resonance to blur the line between the tangible and the supernatural. The Pyramid of Kukulkin stands as one of history's greatest acoustic achievements, a masterpiece of engineering where every step, every angle, every stone was placed with not just visual symmetry in mind, but harmonic perfection. To stand at its base and clap is to hear a message across centuries, a reminder that some voices, even those carved in stone, never truly fall silent. High in the Himalayas, Tibetan monks still tell stories of their ancestors constructing temples with a method that defies modern logic, chanting. According to ancient texts, teams of monks would gather around massive stone blocks, their deep, rhythmic hymns vibrating through the air until the rocks lifted themselves into place as if weightless. For centuries, these accounts were dismissed as pure folklore, but when physicists began testing the effects of sound on solid objects, something remarkable emerged. At specific frequencies, vibrations can indeed cancel out gravity's pull, creating pockets where objects seem to hover. In laboratory settings, researchers have levitated small beads and even droplets of liquid using nothing but carefully tuned sound waves. Scale that up, and suddenly the monks' legends don't sound so far-fetched. The same thread runs through Egyptian mythology. The Westcar Papyrus, an ancient text dating back nearly 4,000 years, describes magicians using rods that emitted harmonic tones to lift and position stone blocks for the pharaoh's monuments. While historians long brushed this off as poetic exaggeration, recent discoveries suggest otherwise. At the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, carvings depict priestesses holding what appear to be tuning forks near massive obelisks, their mouths open as if singing. Even more compelling are the acoustic properties of the temple's crypts when certain notes are sung. The entire chamber vibrates with a palpable energy, a phenomenon modern engineers attribute to the precise angles and materials used in construction. But how could sound physically move something as heavy as stone? The answer lies in resonance. When two objects share the same natural vibrational frequency, energy transfers between them with startling efficiency. Think of an opera singer shattering a glass by hitting the exact pitch that matches its resonant frequency. Now imagine that principle applied to construction. If ancient builders found the resonant frequency of a stone block, often determined by its size, shape, and mineral content, they could theoretically use sound to tune it, reducing friction or even creating temporary anti-gravity effects. Experiments in Sweden have demonstrated that ultrasonic vibrations can make granite slabs slide across surfaces with minimal force, as if the stone momentarily forgot its own weight. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue comes from the ancient city of Baalbek in Lebanon, home to the largest cut stones on Earth. The trilithon, a trio of blocks each weighing over 800 tons, sits so precisely fitted that not even a razor blade can slip between them. Local legends speak of a sound machine used to soften the stones during placement, a device said to emit tones that made the granite malleable like clay. While no such device has been found, geologists note that the local limestone contains high levels of quartz, a mineral known to vibrate under sonic stress. Under the right frequencies, these stones might have temporarily behaved more like putty than solid rock, allowing builders to adjust their positioning with eerie precision. The line between myth and science grows thinner when we examine these stories through the lens of modern physics. What our ancestors described as magic, chanting monks singing rods, humming stones, might have been sophisticated applications of acoustic principles we're only now rediscovering. Whether used to levitate blocks or simply reduce the backbreaking labor of moving them, sound appears to have been one of antiquity's most powerful and most overlooked construction tools. These legends weren't just flights of fancy, they were oral blueprints preserving whispers of a technology that turned vibration into physical force. And if we listen closely, they might still have secrets to reveal. Beneath the quiet streets of Malta lies a place where sound doesn't just travel, it transforms. The Hypogeum, a labyrinth of chambers carved 3 stories deep into solid limestone over 5,000 years ago, isn't merely an ancient burial site. Step inside the so-called oracle chamber, and your voice takes on a life of its own. Whisper a word, and the walls amplify it into a low, resonant hum that lingers for nearly 8 seconds, vibrating through your bones like the echo of a distant drum. But here's what's truly unsettling. This chamber isn't just amplifying sound, it's tuning it. The room resonates at exactly 110 Hz, a frequency scientists now know triggers profound changes in human brain activity. At this precise pitch, EEG scans show the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic and focus, temporarily quiets, while the right hemisphere associated with creativity and trance states lights up. Was this an accident, or did the Hypogeum's builders possess knowledge of neurology millennia before modern medicine? The deeper you explore, the more deliberate the acoustics become. Narrow passageways act like natural waveguides, funneling sound from one chamber to another with eerie clarity. In the Holy of Holies, a small niche carved into the wall creates a bizarre acoustic illusion. Speak into it, and your voice seems to emanate from the ceiling, as if the stones themselves are answering. Archaeologists have found evidence of red ochre pigments in these spaces, suggesting rituals where chanting or drumming might have been enhanced by flickering torchlight, turning sound into something almost tactile. But what kind of rituals? Some researchers believe the Hypogeum was a prehistoric healing center where vibrations were used to alter consciousness and treat ailments. Others point to the skeletal remains found in fetal positions, theorizing the chambers were tuned to mimic the womb's acoustics, guiding souls into the afterlife with resonant frequencies. Then there's the mystery of the sound window, a small opening between 2 chambers that filters specific frequencies. When researchers played tones through it, they discovered something extraordinary. The window blocks all but a narrow band of low-frequency sound, creating a natural bass filter. Stand on one side and you hear a muffled rumble. Stand on the other and the air pulses with a deep, rhythmic throb, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. This level of acoustic precision would challenge modern engineers with laser measurers, yet the Hypogeum's creators achieved it with stone tools and firelight. Perhaps most haunting is the chamber nicknamed the Vault, where the ceiling curves in a parabolic arch so precise it turns whispers into focused beams of sound. Speak softly in one corner, and someone 30 feet away hears your words as clearly as if you were standing beside them, an effect that would have made private communication possible even in crowded rituals. Combine this with the site's natural infrasound, generated by underground water currents, and the Hypogeum becomes more than a tomb. It becomes an instrument fine-tuned to manipulate perception, emotion, and perhaps even reality itself. What were these ancient builders trying to achieve? A gateway to the divine, a machine for transcendence, or something we still don't have the vocabulary to describe? The Hypogeum refuses to give up its secrets easily, but one thing is certain. In this underground cathedral of sound, the stones don't just echo, they speak. And if we listen closely, they might just rewrite history. Standing in the uppermost row of Epidaurus's ancient theater, over 60 meters from the circular stage below, you'd expect to hear nothing but wind and distant murmurs. But drop a coin on the orchestra's stone floor, and the metallic ping rings as clearly in your ears as if it landed at your feet. This isn't just good acoustics, it's acoustic perfection, achieved 2,400 years before modern sound engineering. The secret lies in the theater's precise geometry. Every one of its 55 limestone tiers is angled at exactly the right slope to reflect sound waves upward, while the stepped seating acts like a natural filter, scattering high-frequency noise and amplifying the human voice. Even more remarkably, the semicircular design creates what physicists call a whispering gallery effect, where sound waves hug the curve of the stone, losing almost no energy as they travel. But how did the Greeks calculate these proportions without microphones or computers? The answer might lie in their obsession with harmonic ratios. Architects like Polykleitos the Younger didn't just design theaters. They composed them using the same mathematical principles that governed musical intervals. The width-to-height ratio of Epidaurus matches the harmonic fourth, a musical interval that creates a naturally pleasing resonance. Even the spacing between seats corresponds to ancient tuning systems, with each row positioned like the fret on a lyre. When actors spoke from the stage, their voices weren't just projected, they were harmonically enhanced, as if the entire theater were a giant instrument tuned to the human voice. Yet Epidaurus isn't an isolated marvel. At Delphi's theater, built into the steep slopes of Mount Parnassus, the backdrop of the stage aligns with a natural rock face that acts like a sonic mirror, bouncing voices back to the audience with startling clarity. Recent laser scans reveal something even more astonishing. The limestone used in these theaters contains microscopic cavities that absorb unwanted frequencies, functioning like prehistoric acoustic foam. This level of sophistication suggests the Greeks weren't pioneers of perfect acoustics, they were inheritors. Similar sonic precision appears in Minoan theaters on Crete dating back 3,500 years, and even in the megalithic structures of Malta. Could this knowledge have traveled along ancient trade routes, passed down through generations of builders who understood stone not just as a material, but as a medium for sound? The most compelling evidence comes from an unlikely source: water. Researchers experimenting with scale models found that when theaters were flooded with just a few centimeters of water, the acoustics improved dramatically. The liquid created a reflective surface that enhanced bass frequencies, making voices sound richer and more resonant. Intriguingly, many Greek theaters, including Epidaurus, have central drainage systems suggesting they might have been intentionally flooded during performances. Imagine actors delivering lines while their voices rippled across water, merging with the reflections to create an almost supernatural auditory experience. What's clear is that these theaters weren't just venues for entertainment, they were temples of vibration, where architecture and acoustics merged to elevate human expression. The Greeks didn't just build stages, they engineered empathy, ensuring every laugh, gasp, and whisper could be shared by thousands in a collective moment of sonic communion. Today, as opera singers perform at Epidaurus without microphones, their unamplified voices reaching every corner of the amphitheater. We're not just witnessing ancient engineering, we're hearing history itself. And the most humbling realization, after millennia of technological advancement, we still haven't surpassed their mastery of sound. Rising from the desert sands like frozen lightning, Egypt's obelisks have always been marvels of engineering. But what if their true purpose wasn't just to impress the eye, but to stir the air itself? Take the towering Lateran obelisk, originally erected at Carnac, standing over 120 feet tall and weighing 450 tons. This single block of red granite shouldn't just stand there silently. When wind blows across such massive stone surfaces, physics demands they vibrate, much like the string of a bow hums when plucked. Researchers experimenting with scale models discovered something startling. Obelisks don't just vibrate, they resonate, emitting deep, subsonic frequencies that travel for miles through the dense desert air. These aren't random tones either. Paired obelisks, like those once flanking temple entrances, appear to have been spaced at precise intervals that created standing waves between them, transforming the entire courtyard into a giant resonance chamber. The implications are staggering. Ancient texts describe rituals where priests would awaken obelisks at dawn by striking them with golden rods, producing sounds said to cleanse the temple of darkness. Modern acousticians testing this claim found that even light taps on certain spots, often marked by carvings of musical instruments, could send vibrations pulsing through the stone, activating harmonic overtones. At Carnac's great hypostyle hall, where 12 obelisks once stood in formation, computer simulations show these vibrations would have created overlapping sound fields, enveloping worshippers in a dome of audible energy. Some Egyptologists now believe this wasn't just ceremonial. The low-frequency waves, imperceptible to the human ear but felt in the bones, could have induced trance states, making participants more receptive to divine messages during rituals. But the most tantalizing clue lies beneath the obelisks themselves. Recent ground-penetrating radar scans reveal many sit atop hollow chambers lined with quartz-rich sandstone, a mineral known to amplify vibrations. When researchers recreated one such chamber and played resonant frequencies through it, the entire structure began emitting ultrasonic waves, frequencies so high they can affect brain activity. This might explain why certain obelisks were inscribed with warnings about the voice of the stone, and why so many were positioned along ley lines where geological faults generate natural infrasound. The ancients may have been tapping into the Earth's own vibrations, using these monolithic tuning forks to harmonize human ceremonies with the planet's pulse. Perhaps the ultimate evidence comes from the obelisks that survive today. Though most were moved to foreign cities during antiquity, the few still standing in Egypt demonstrate an eerie property. During seasonal wind patterns, they emit faint, bell-like tones, a phenomenon locals have reported for centuries but scientists only recently confirmed. When audio analysts studied these sounds, they found the frequencies match the natural resonance of the human skull. Coincidence, or the signature of a lost technology that turned stone into sound and sound into something sacred? The more we study these towering sentinels of the past, the clearer it becomes. Their silence was never empty. It was waiting. At Teotihuacan, the Avenue of the Dead doesn't just point toward celestial markers, it sings. Walk its ancient path, and your footsteps echo unnaturally, bouncing between pyramid walls with a rhythmic precision that feels orchestrated. Archaeologists mapping the site's acoustics discovered something uncanny. The city's major structures form a giant sound grid, with temples and plazas positioned at points where natural echoes converge. The Pyramid of the Sun, for instance, sits atop a network of tunnels that act like a subterranean echo chamber, amplifying chants from the plaza below into a thunderous roar. But this isn't random. The entire city seems tuned to specific frequencies, with buildings spaced at intervals that create harmonic standing waves when drums or voices resonate across the valley. Halfway across the world, Angkor Wat reveals a similar secret. The temple's massive moat isn't just for show. It's a sonic mirror. When dawn breaks, the still water reflects chants from the central tower, creating overlapping sound waves that envelop the complex in a dome of reverberation. LiDAR scans now show the surrounding jungle hides hundreds of buried ponds, all strategically placed to amplify certain frequencies. Even more striking, the temple's famous bas-reliefs depict musicians playing instruments tuned to the same frequencies modern researchers have recorded in the stone corridors. It's as if the entire city was composed like a symphony, with each structure serving as an instrument in a grand acoustic design. The pattern repeats in Petra's rose-red canyons, where the treasury's facade transforms whispers into booming echoes, and in China's Forbidden City, where the elevated walkways were designed to carry the emperor's voice across courtyards without distortion. These weren't happy accidents. Ancient builders seem to have understood something modern urban planners often overlook. Sound shapes human experience as profoundly as sight. In Oaxaca's Monte Alban, for example, the ball court's parallel walls create a whispering gallery where players could communicate tactics unheard by spectators, an ancient version of acoustic encryption. What's truly revolutionary is how these cities integrated natural acoustics into their blueprints. At Choco Canyon, the cliff faces behind Pueblo Bonito reflect sound in ways that align with solstice markers, turning seasonal shifts into audible events. In Greece, the theatre at Epidaurus uses the surrounding hillsides as a natural amphitheatre, while Delphi's temple harnessed seismic vibrations from fault lines beneath it. These cultures didn't just build with stone, they composed with landscape, turning entire valleys into instruments and mountains into amplifiers. The implications rewrite our understanding of ancient urban design. These cities weren't just planned for processions or pageantry. They were engineered for resonance, where every footstep, chant, or drumbeat became part of a living soundscape. To walk their streets wasn't just to move through space, it was to perform in an eternal concert where the very stones sang back. Along the windswept coast of Brittany, the Carnac stones stand in eerie formation, row after row of ancient monoliths stretching for miles like a frozen army. But on certain mornings, when the wind blows just right, something extraordinary happens. The stones begin to hum, not a gentle whisper, but a deep, resonant drone that vibrates through the ground beneath your feet. Local fishermen have known about this phenomenon for generations, calling it the voice of the ancestors. Scientists who have studied the site describe it as a natural Aeolian harp effect. Wind passing over the stone's uneven surfaces creates standing waves in the air, much like blowing across the top of a bottle. But the Carnac alignments take this to another level. Each stone appears to have been carefully positioned to interact with its neighbors, creating a cascading chorus where one monolith's hum triggers the next in a ripple of sound that travels down the lines. What's truly puzzling is how these vibrations align with the landscape. The main stone rows run parallel to geological faults beneath the surface, fractures in the Earth's crust that naturally transmit seismic vibrations. When researchers placed sensitive microphones along these fault lines, they detected a constant low-frequency hum rising from deep underground. At dawn and dusk, when temperature changes cause the faults to expand and contract, this hum intensifies, matching the exact frequencies the stones produce in the wind. It's as if the megaliths were deliberately placed to amplify the Earth's own song. Some archaeologists propose the stones served as a prehistoric early warning system. The particular frequencies generated by these vibrations travel much farther through rock than through air, meaning a tremor from miles away could make the stones hum long before the quake itself arrived. Others point to the site's alignment with solstice sunrises, suggesting the dawn chorus of stones wasn't just a natural phenomenon, but a celestial alarm clock, an acoustic signal that marked sacred moments in the ritual calendar. Then there's the boundary theory. The Carnac alignments form clear lines separating different types of terrain, coastal from inland, fertile plains from rocky plateaus. When researchers mapped the sound propagation, they discovered something startling. The humming creates an audible barrier. Stand inside the stone rose during these sonic events, and the drone surrounds you like an invisible wall. Step outside and the effect disappears. For a Neolithic culture, this may have represented more than just physics. It could have been magic, a place where the boundary between worlds wasn't just seen, but heard. The most haunting evidence comes from the stones themselves. Unlike most megaliths, which are roughly hewn, many Carnac monoliths have strange grooves and fluting along their edges. At first dismissed as erosion, these markings now appear deliberate precision-carved channels that alter how wind flows across each stone's surface. Some even contain cup marks that create swirling vortices of air, adding harmonic overtones to the drone. This level of acoustic engineering suggests the builders didn't just exploit natural phenomena, they perfected it, turning random wind into a controlled chorus. Perhaps the most fascinating clue lies in Breton folklore. Legends speak of a time when the stones weren't silent sentinels, but singing pillars that guided travelers through fog. The descriptions match modern accounts of infrasound frequencies too low for human ears to hear, but which can create feelings of unease or directionality. It's possible the stones didn't just mark physical paths but created sonic trails, their vibrations serving as an ancient GPS for ritual processions. Today, as scientists continue decoding the stone's secrets, one thing becomes clear: Carnac wasn't built to be seen. It was built to be heard. In a world without written language, these monoliths may have been tuning forks for oral tradition, their vibrations carrying stories across generations. When the wind rises and the stones begin their ghostly chorus, they're not just making noise, they're speaking in a language we're only beginning to understand. And after 5,000 years, they're still not finished. Did ancient builders carry tuning forks instead of blueprints? The idea might sound fantastical, but consider this: in the ruins of Mesopotamia, archaeologists uncovered curious copper rods dating back over 4,000 years. When struck, these rods vibrate at precise frequencies that match the resonant tones of nearby ziggurates. Similar artifacts appear across ancient sites: bronze discs in Delphi, crystal rods in Mesoamerica, and hollow ceremonial staffs in Egypt. These weren't just ritual objects, they may have been the world's first acoustic measurers. Modern engineers use laser levels to check alignments, but ancient builders could have used sound. A rod humming at a certain pitch might resonate when held near a perfectly cut stone, confirming its dimensions matched the master template. Water, too, may have played a role beyond symbolism. In Peru's Kenko Temple, researchers discovered a network of carved channels that funnel rainwater into underground chambers. When filled, these spaces transform into natural resonance boxes. Strike a drum above them, and the sound amplifies dramatically while certain frequencies linger unnaturally long. Similar hydraulic features appear in Celtic wells and Hindu step temples, suggesting a widespread understanding of liquid acoustics. Builders might have used these water chambers to test echoes during construction, adjusting angles until reflections met sacred harmonic ratios. Then there's the human element. At Göbekli Tepe, the world's oldest known temple, pillars bear carvings of figures holding their throats, a gesture some linguists interpret as symbolic chanting. Experiments at the site reveal something startling. The circular enclosures act like giant sound bowls, where rhythmic chanting creates standing waves that seem to make the air vibrate. This could explain how Neolithic workers moved multi-ton stones without wheels or pulleys. Synchronized chanting wouldn't just boost morale, it might have allowed teams to feel when stones reached resonant frequencies, guiding placement through vibration rather than sight. The most compelling evidence comes from tool marks. Analysis of stonework at Puma Punku and Sacsayhuamon reveals cuts so precise they suggest the builders didn't just chip away at rock, they somehow softened it. Local legends speak of plants or liquids that made stone flow like mud, but physics offers another explanation. Ultrasonic vibrations can temporarily alter crystalline structures in certain rocks, a phenomenon known as acoustic fluidization. Modern diamond cutters use this principle. Did ancient engineers discover it first, using tuned rods to create high-frequency vibrations that turned granite temporarily pliable? Perhaps the ultimate clue lies in what's missing. The absence of cranes or pulleys at megalithic sites has long puzzled archaeologists, but if sound was the true tool, no heavy machinery was needed. A team chanting in unison, rods humming against stone, water chambers amplifying guidance. These invisible technologies would leave little trace beyond the perfect alignments we still marvel at today. The stones themselves whisper the truth. Sometimes the most powerful tools aren't held in hands but carried on the air. On Easter Island, oral traditions tell of the Moai, those massive stone giants walking to their posts. The islanders insist their ancestors didn't drag these statues across miles of rugged terrain, but guided them with rhythmic chants. To modern ears, it sounds like myth. But when researchers tested the theory, they discovered something extraordinary. Groups chanting in unison while gently rocking a replica Moai could indeed walk the statue forward with minimal effort, as if the stone had momentarily shed its weight. This wasn't magic, it was physics. The coordinated rhythm created a harmonic resonance that synchronized muscle movements, turning a backbreaking task into something almost effortless. Similar stories echo through India's temple-building traditions. Ancient texts describe teams of workers chanting specific mantras while positioning multi-ton granite blocks. Modern experiments reveal why this might have worked. When a group chants together, their voices create standing waves, sound patterns where certain points vibrate intensely while others stay still. Place a heavy object at one of these vibrational nodes, and it becomes astonishingly easy to move. Even more intriguing, certain Sanskrit chants produce frequencies that match the natural resonance of granite, potentially reducing friction between stones during placement. The power of chanting goes beyond mere coordination. In Peru, researchers at Ollantaytambo noticed something strange about the andesite blocks used to build the fortress. When struck, these stones ring with a metallic tone, as if they'd been tuned. Local legends say the Incas used sun songs to soften the rock, allowing them to shape it like clay. While that might sound fantastical, ultrasonic testing shows something remarkable. Prolonged exposure to certain sound frequencies can temporarily alter the crystalline structure of andesite, making it more malleable. Modern stonecutters use similar principles with diamond-tipped tools that vibrate at ultrasonic speeds. Did ancient builders achieve comparable effects with nothing but human voices? Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the human body itself. Studies on Tibetan monks demonstrate how group chanting can induce physiological synchronization, heart rates and brain waves aligning across participants. Apply this to a construction site, and suddenly, hundreds of workers could function as a single organism, their combined voices not just boosting morale, but physically affecting the materials they handled. The right chant at the right frequency might have made stones vibrate in harmony with the workers, reducing perceived weight and allowing precise placement that defies modern explanations. From the choral churches of Micronesia to the dolmens of Korea, these oral traditions share an uncanny consistency, the idea that sound could soften stone, align intent, and bend physics to human will. Today, as physicists rediscover how vibration affects matter at the quantum level, these ancient techniques start to seem less like superstition and more like sophisticated acoustic engineering. The builders of the past may have understood something we're only beginning to grasp, that the human voice isn't just for speaking or singing, but for shaping the physical world. And in certain moments when rhythm, resonance, and stone aligned perfectly, the impossible became routine. Beneath the pyramids of Giza, hidden channels of groundwater pulse silently. Ancient engineers may have known their secret power. Water doesn't just quench thirst, it transforms sound. When vibrations travel through liquid, they slow down but gain intensity, creating waves that carry farther and hit harder than through air or stone alone. This might explain why so many sacred sites were built atop underground rivers or reservoirs. Take Chichen Itza's cenotes, those deep, natural sinkholes the Maya considered portals to the underworld. When researchers dropped hydrophones into these waters, they recorded something eerie. The caves beneath the city act like giant subwoofers, amplifying low-frequency sounds into booming pulses that reverberate through the limestone foundations. Strike a drum above ground during a ceremony, and the vibrations would have traveled through the earth, emerging from the cenotes as a ghostly echo, as if the gods themselves were answering. But water's role goes beyond amplification. In Egypt's temple of Carnac, the sacred lake isn't just for ritual cleansings, it's a sonic mirror. Experiments show that chants from the temple's inner sanctum ripple across the water's surface, reflecting back with enhanced clarity. The lake's rectangular shape creates standing waves that reinforce certain frequencies, much like wine-glass rims singing when rubbed. Even more intriguing are the temple's underground cisterns, which recent scans reveal are carved to precise depth. When filled, these chambers resonate at frequencies matching the harmonic intervals of ancient Egyptian music. Was this coincidence, or were priests using water-filled vaults as natural tuning forks to calibrate their instruments and voices? Then there's the mystery of Malta's Hypogeum, where underground springs still trickle through chambers engineered to hum at 110 Hz, a frequency known to alter brain activity. Dive deeper and you'll find something even stranger. The walls are coated in a thin layer of calcite deposits from millennia of mineral-rich water seepage. This crystalline coating doesn't just reflect sound, it refracts it, splitting tones into harmonic overtones that shimmer through the air like auditory illusions. Modern acousticians struggle to replicate this effect without digital processors, yet the builders achieved it by letting water and time sculpt the stone's surface. Perhaps the most astonishing discovery comes from Bolivia's Tiwanaku, where archaeologists found networks of zigzagging canals beneath the temples. At first dismissed as irrigation, these channels reveal a genius design. When water flows through them, the bends create vortices that generate infrasound. During solstice ceremonies, the rushing water would have produced a subsonic drone felt more than heard, vibrating through the plaza and inducing trance states in worshippers. Similar systems appear in Cambodia's Angkor Wat and Turkey's Derinkuyu underground city, suggesting a global understanding of hydroacoustics lost to time. From the whispering wells of Celtic Britain to the singing fountains of Mughal gardens, our ancestors seem to know something we've forgotten: that water isn't just life's sustainer, but sound's alchemist. It bends pitch, magnifies whispers, and turns ordinary vibrations into something otherworldly. The next time you stand by an ancient fountain or sacred spring, listen closely. The past isn't just echoing, it's harmonizing. In a cave near Germany's Danube River, archaeologists uncovered a bone flute carved over 40,000 years ago, one of humanity's oldest known instruments. But here's what's puzzling. Similar flutes keep turning up not in burial sites or homes, but at the foot of megalithic construction projects. At Britain's Stonehenge, excavators found fragments of a lithophone, a stone xylophone buried near the bluestones. In Peru, bull roarers, those ancient spinning sound devices that produce eerie, droning tones, were discovered nestled between the foundation stones of Ollantaytambo. These weren't random placements. Each instrument, when played, emits frequencies that perfectly match the resonant vibrations of the stones used in nearby structures. Take the bone flutes found near Carnac's standing stones. When researchers replicated one and played it toward the granite monoliths, something remarkable happened. The stones didn't just echo the sound, they amplified specific harmonics, almost as if responding. This wasn't passive acoustics, it was a conversation. Ancient builders might have used these instruments as tuning devices, testing how sound waves interacted with different rocks before selecting which ones to quarry. Imagine a team tapping a lithophone against candidate stones, listening for the clearest ring, a primitive but effective quality control system. But the real revelation comes from the bull roarers. These simple devices, when swung at certain speeds, produce infrasound frequencies too low for human ears to detect, but which can be felt in the bones. At Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists noticed something peculiar about the bull roarers found on site. Their spin rates generate vibrations that match the natural resonance of the T-shaped pillars. During experiments, researchers swung replicas near the pillars, and the effect was chilling. The entire structure seemed to hum in response, a subsonic vibration that made the ground tremble faintly beneath their feet. Could these have been prehistoric sonar tools, helping builders listen for hidden cracks or weaknesses in the stone? Even more intriguing is how these instruments might have guided construction. In China's Neolithic Yongshao culture, ceramic whistles shaped like birds were found near the foundations of ritual platforms. When blown, their high-pitched shrieks create standing waves that bounce off nearby cliffs, producing echoes that precisely mark the summer solstice sunrise. Similar whistle fragments appear at Newgrange in Ireland and Choco Canyon in New Mexico, sites famously aligned with celestial events. It's as if ancient architects used sound not just to build, but to calibrate their structures with the cosmos. Perhaps the most compelling evidence lies in the instruments themselves. Many show where patterns inconsistent with casual use, repeated strikes in exact spots, or handles smoothed by countless rotations. These weren't occasional ritual objects, they were tools worn from daily work, and their designs reveal sophisticated acoustic knowledge. The bone flute's finger holes follow mathematical ratios that produce perfect fourths and fifths, intervals known to resonate with crystalline structures like quartz-rich granite. The bull roarer's chords are precisely weighted to maintain specific spin rates, ensuring consistent frequencies. Even the lithophone stones were carefully selected for their tonal purity, with some showing evidence of being reshaped to fine-tune their pitch. So what does this mean for our understanding of ancient construction? It suggests that music wasn't just an accompaniment to building, it was the blueprint. Before chisels touched stone, before ropes were tied, there were voices chanting, flutes singing, stones ringing. These sounds didn't just guide hands, they shaped spaces, turning random piles of rock into harmonic architectures that still resonate with intention millennia later. The next time you see an ancient monument, don't just look at its stones, listen for the echoes of the instruments that might have placed them there. Archaeologists have spent centuries studying ancient ruins with their eyes, measuring angles, mapping layouts, analyzing carvings. but only recently have we thought to listen. A revolutionary approach called acoustic archaeology is flipping the script, using cutting-edge technology to reconstruct how these spaces actually sounded to the people who built them. By combining laser scans of sites with advanced audio software, researchers can now simulate the echoes of ceremonies in long silent temples, or the way a whisper might have traveled across an ancient plaza. The findings are rewriting history. Take the case of Mexico's Templo Mayor. When archaeologists modeled its acoustics, they discovered something astonishing. The temple's twin staircases acted like a natural stereo system. A priest standing at the summit and chanting would have had their voice split into dual echoes, bouncing off the parallel steps to create a surround sound effect that made their words seem to come from everywhere at once. Even more eerily, the temple's orientation amplifies the cry of the red-tailed hawk, a sacred animal whose shriek would have reverberated through the sacred precinct with supernatural intensity during dawn ceremonies. This wasn't just architecture, it was auditory engineering. Similar revelations are emerging from Greece's Eleusinian Mysteries Sanctuary. For 2,000 years, the rituals performed here remained secret. Initiates were sworn to silence under penalty of death. But acoustic modeling of the telesterion, the hall where the most sacred rites occurred, reveals why. The space's unique barrel-vaulted ceiling and carefully placed reflective surfaces created what scientists call a confidentiality zone. Words spoken in certain spots could only be heard by those standing in precise locations, while the rest of the hall remained eerily quiet. The ancients didn't just keep their secrets through oaths, they built soundproofing into the very stones. Perhaps the most startling discovery comes from Scotland's Micho tomb. This Neolithic chamber, older than the pyramids, has long been famous for its winter solstice alignment, when sunlight pierces its entrance tunnel. But when acoustic engineers mapped its soundscape, they found something equally deliberate. The tomb resonates at exactly 96 Hz, a frequency that causes the human voice to deepen and slow. Chant inside Micho and your words take on an otherworldly, almost godlike quality. Even more remarkably, the same frequency has been detected in passage graves across Europe, suggesting this wasn't a local quirk, but a continent-wide acoustic tradition. The implications are profound. We've always assumed ancient builders prioritized visual symmetry and structural stability. But what if they were equally obsessed with sonic perfection? In Turkey's Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire, recent scans revealed that the city's massive stone gates contain hidden resonating chambers. When struck, they would have produced deep tones audible for miles, a primitive public address system announcing arrivals and emergencies. Meanwhile, in Peru, the Nazca Line's acoustic properties suggest they weren't just meant to be seen from above, but heard. Their spirals and geometric shapes channel wind into harmonic patterns that still sing across the desert today. This new field is revealing a hidden layer of ancient ingenuity. From the precise echo delays in Maya ball courts that turned games into acoustic theaters, to the bronze doors of Chinese imperial tombs designed to clang at specific pitches when opened, our ancestors didn't just build for the eye. They composed for the ear. As acoustic archaeology matures, who knows what other sonic secrets might emerge? The past has been whispering to us all along. Now, finally, we're learning how to listen. In the hushed corridors of Newgrange, Ireland's 5,000-year-old passage tomb, a single word can linger in the air for seconds, twisting and folding back on itself like a whisper from another time. This isn't just an accident of architecture. The tomb's cruciform chamber and corbelled ceiling were designed to trap sound, creating echoes that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. For the Neolithic people who built it, these lingering voices weren't mere reflections. They were messages. Across cultures and continents, echoes held sacred meaning. The Maori of New Zealand believed echoes were voices of ancestral spirits answering from cliffs, while Greek myths told of nymphs called Echo who could only repeat the words of others, trapped between worlds. Ancient builders didn't just tolerate these sonic phenomena, they engineered them into their most sacred spaces. Peru's Moray ruins offer one of the most striking examples. These circular terraces sink deep into the earth like inverted pyramids, and when you stand at their center, something extraordinary happens. A clap or chant rebounds off the concentric walls in rhythmic layers, as if the very earth is repeating your words back to you. Archaeologists once assumed Moray was an agricultural site, but acoustic testing reveals its true genius. Each terrace acts like a stepped filter, stripping away higher frequencies until only a deep, resonant hum remains. For the Inca, this may have been more than ritual theater. The terrace's precise geometry suggests they functioned as a giant acoustic calendar, with echoes changing in duration and pitch as the sun moved across the sky, marking solstices and equinoxes through sound rather than shadow. Halfway across the world, Turkey's Derinkuyu underground city takes this concept even deeper. Literally, carved into volcanic rock, its labyrinthine tunnels feature strange, bottle-shaped chambers that amplify whispers while dampening shouts. Stand in one of these niches and murmur a prayer, and the sound travels dozens of feet through stone, clear as if spoken beside you. But step back just a few inches and the effect vanishes. These weren't just storage rooms, they were clandestine confessionals, where priests could hear secrets or deliver oracles without being seen. Modern engineers confirm the chamber's parabolic shapes focus sound waves with precision that would challenge today's acousticians, all achieved with nothing but bronze tools and an intimate understanding of rock resonance. Perhaps the most haunting evidence comes from the American Southwest. At Chaco Canyon's Pueblo Bonito, archaeologists found a network of sealed rooms behind the Great Kiva, spaces with no visible entrances. When researchers used ground-penetrating radar, they discovered why. These ghost rooms are positioned to create delayed echoes, where sound entering through hidden vents reemerges seconds later, altered in tone. For the ancestral pueblones, this may have simulated the voices of ancestors speaking from the underworld during ceremonies. Even more remarkably, the delays match the rhythmic patterns of traditional drumming, suggesting the entire structure functioned like a colossal echo chamber, turning rituals into immersive sonic experiences where the living and the dead seem to converse in real time. What unites these sites isn't just technical prowess, it's a shared belief that sound could bridge realms. In Egypt, the so-called ear tables found near the Great Pyramid were once dismissed as offering trays, until linguists realized their inscriptions invited the dead to hear prayers through vibrations in the stone. In Japan, the megalithic Masuda no Iwafune resonates at frequencies that match traditional shamanic chants, its hollow chambers designed to amplify trance-inducing harmonics. From Scandinavia's echoing burial ships to the whispering galleries of Indian stepwells, our ancestors didn't just hear echoes, they listened to them, treating these sonic reflections as a language far older than words. The deeper we probe these ancient soundscapes, the clearer it becomes. Echo wasn't an effect to them, it was an intelligence, a way to make the invisible audible, to give form to the formless. When the builders of Newgrange chiseled their stones to precise angles or the Inca stacked Moray's terraces with mathematical precision, they weren't just constructing spaces. They were composing dialogues with the divine, using the one medium that could traverse time, space, and even the boundary between life and death, the human voice and its immortal echo. The Parthenon's columns don't just stand in perfect proportion, they sing. Each spacing, each curve follows the golden ratio, that mystical number 1.618. that also structures musical masterpieces from Beethoven's Fifth to the harmonics of a Stradivarius violin. This isn't coincidence. Across the ancient world, from Egypt's pyramids to Cambodia's Angkor Wat, builders encoded the same mathematical ratios found in nature's most pleasing sounds into their stones. The result, architecture that doesn't just please the eye but resonates with the soul. Take the Great Pyramid's inner chambers. Their dimensions match the frequencies of the ancient Egyptian musical scale, the same notes priests used in rituals to invoke the gods. The king's chamber's length-to-width ratio aligns precisely with the interval between the fundamental tone and the fourth harmonic in music theory, creating a space where chants would naturally harmonize with the room itself. Modern acousticians measuring these spaces describe the effect as standing inside a giant tuning fork, where every surface reinforces sacred frequencies instead of scattering them randomly. This marriage of math and melody reveals itself most vividly in Gothic cathedrals. Chartres' soaring nave doesn't just follow the golden ratio, its vaults are spaced at intervals that produce perfect fifths when sound travels between them, the same harmonious interval that forms the backbone of Western music. Walk its length while humming a medieval chant, and you'll notice something uncanny. The notes that sound richest in the space are those that align with the building's proportions. The architects didn't just design for light and shadow, they composed for resonance, turning stone into a colossal instrument of worship. Even more fascinating is how these principles appear globally. In India, the 6th century Vishnu temple at Deoghar uses the same 3:2 ratio found in Pythagorean tuning, its tower's height to base proportion mirroring the perfect fifth in music. Chinese pagodas follow the ancient 12-loose system, where each floor's dimensions correspond to notes in the chromatic scale. The Maya at Palenque built their temple of inscriptions with stair counts and doorway ratios that match the intervals of their ceremonial flutes. This worldwide pattern suggests something profound, that ancient cultures didn't see geometry, music, and architecture as separate disciplines, but as expressions of a universal harmonic language. The implications are staggering. When Renaissance architects rediscovered these principles, they spoke of the music of the spheres, the idea that celestial bodies moved in mathematical harmony. But the ancients may have taken this literally. At Greece's Delphi, the Temple of Apollo's floor plan forms a lyre shape when viewed from above, its inner columns placed at nodes that amplify specific musical modes used in oracle ceremonies. Similarly, Stonehenge's outer Sarsen circle replicates the proportions of a diatonic scale, the same 7-note arrangement found in most world music traditions. Perhaps the most telling clue lies in the tools left behind. Carved into the walls of Egypt's Luxor temple are hieroglyphs showing priests holding cubit rods, traditional measuring sticks next to musical instruments. Recent analysis reveals these rods aren't marked in simple increments, but in ratios matching musical intervals. A builder could slide the rod along a stone block, and the markings would indicate not just length, but harmonic compatibility with other elements of the structure. These weren't just blueprints, they were sheet music for stone. What emerges is a vision of ancient architecture not as frozen sculpture, but as captured vibration. The Parthenon's columns aren't merely holding up a roof, they're sustaining a chord. The pyramids aren't just tombs, they're instruments waiting to be played. And when the wind whistles through Petra's canyons or rain drums on Angkor's towers, maybe we're not just hearing random noise. Maybe we're catching fragments of a symphony composed in stone, a harmony our ancestors built to last millennia, knowing someday we'd listen close enough to hear it. At 17 Hz, a vibration so deep you feel it in your ribs before your ears register anything at all, the human brain starts to misfire. This is infrasound, the shadowy cousin of audible noise, rumbling below 20 Hz where hearing gives way to primal sensation. Modern labs have proven these frequencies trigger fight or flight responses, distort vision, and even conjure phantom figures in peripheral sight. Now imagine standing in a Neolithic tomb as its stone walls pulse with these very vibrations, the air thick with a hum you can't hear but your body knows is there. It's no wonder these spaces felt haunted. They literally were altering perception. Take England's Rosslyn Chapel, famed for its eerie acoustics. Beneath the intricate carvings, researchers detected a hidden network of cavities in the walls. When activated by organ music during medieval services, these chambers would have pumped infrasound through the pews at 8 Hz, the same frequency as Earth's natural electromagnetic field. Pilgrims describing divine presences weren't just being poetic, their brains were bathed in vibrations known to induce trance states. Similar effects emerge at Malta's Hypogeum, where underground water channels amplify seismic tremors into a constant 19 Hz drone. Stand in its oracle chamber long enough, and the room's frequency literally interferes with your eyeball's vibration, causing visual distortions that ancient worshippers likely interpreted as visions. But the most compelling evidence comes from nature itself. Many sacred sites sit atop geological faults that act as natural infrasound generators. Delphi's temple, built where 2 tectonic plates grind, emits pulses matching the theta brainwaves of deep meditation. Egypt's Great Pyramid channels desert winds into its subterranean chambers, creating standing waves at 7 Hz. A frequency military studies linked to disorientation and heightened suggestibility. Even Stonehenge's bluestones, when struck, produce ultrasonic vibrations that travel through the earth, a phenomenon locals once called the stones singing to the underworld. What's chilling is how consistently ancient builders exploited these effects. Gothic cathedrals like Chartres position their pipe organs to amplify infrasound during certain chords, while Maya ball courts use parallel walls to bounce low frequencies back onto players. At Peru's Chavín de Huanta, conch shell trumpets blown in labyrinthine tunnels generate frequencies that make torch flames flicker in sync, a visual proof of sound waves powerful enough to vibrate bone. These weren't accidents, they were technologies. The irony, we're only rediscovering this now. Modern concert halls spend millions dampening infrasound to prevent audience nausea, while our ancestors intentionally weaponized it. Their haunted crypts and living statues weren't metaphors, they were carefully tuned instruments, playing the human nervous system like an orchestra. The next time you feel uncanny awe in an ancient space, trust your gut. That shiver down your spine isn't superstition. It's science written in frequencies older than language itself. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, a tiny male pufferfish spends days crafting an intricate circular nest in the sand, not with his fins but with sound. By vibrating his body at precise frequencies, he creates standing waves that sculpt the seabed into geometric ridges, a mesmerizing display of nature's acoustic engineering. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, honeybees hum in unison as they construct their hexagonal hives, their collective buzzing generating heat that softens wax into perfect, resonant chambers. These aren't just random behaviors, they're blueprints. From termite mounds that channel wind into cooling symphonies to whales whose songs shape coral reefs, the animal kingdom has been using sound as a construction tool for millions of years. Could ancient humans have observed and imitated these natural masters? Consider the honeycomb. For centuries, we marveled at its perfect hexagons, assuming bees relied solely on instinct. But recent studies reveal something astonishing. The wax walls vibrate at frequencies that reinforce their structure, much like the acoustic patterns found in ancient Greek theatres. Even more telling, the same harmonic ratios appear in Neolithic stone circles like Scotland's Carnac, where standing stones are spaced to amplify specific tones when struck. Coincidence or evidence that early builders, like bees, discovered how geometry and sound could stabilize their creations? Then there's the termites' secret. Their towering mounds, often compared to ancient ziggurats, aren't just dirt piles, they're living instruments. Internal tunnels act like organ pipes, channeling breezes into low-frequency drones that regulate temperature and humidity. Remarkably, similar acoustic principles appear in the ventilation shafts of Egypt's pyramids and the wind-catching towers of Persia's ancient cities. The Mojave Desert's harvester ants take it further, using vibrational pulses to compact soil into waterproof bunkers, a technique mirrored in the rammed earth walls of China's 4,000-year-old Yayadong dwellings. Perhaps the most striking parallel lies beneath the ocean. Humpback whales collaborate to create sand nets, precise circles of sound waves that herd fish by manipulating the seafloor's sediment. These rippling patterns bear an uncanny resemblance to the concentric ditches around Britain's Avebury stone circle, where archaeologists have detected buried channels designed to amplify ground vibrations during rituals. Even more compelling are the ultrasonic clicks of dolphins, who use sound to image underwater caves, a natural version of the sonar-like techniques some researchers believe ancient mariners employed to map resonant stones for monuments. The evidence isn't just circumstantial. Indigenous traditions worldwide preserve explicit knowledge of animal acoustics. Aboriginal songlines describe emu calls that reveal underground water channels, while Navajo legends speak of learning masonry from the rhythmic pecking of woodpeckers. In West Africa, the Dogon people's granaries mimic termite mound acoustics to preserve grain, just as Andean storehouses copied the ultrasonic pest-deterring vibrations of bat colonies. What if ancient monuments weren't just inspired by nature's forms, but by its frequencies? When a spider's web vibrates at specific tones to signal prey, or when prairie dogs engineer their tunnels to amplify warning calls, they're demonstrating principles humans later encoded in stone. The difference is scale. Where animals use sound to shape mud or wax, our ancestors harnessed it to move mountains. The next time you hear birdsong at dawn or the hum of a beehive, listen closely. That's not just noise, it's the oldest construction manual on Earth. In the quiet ruins of Greece's Asclepieion, the air still hums with echoes of an ancient medical revolution. These healing temples, dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine, weren't just places of prayer. They were precision-tuned resonance chambers where sound itself was the physician. Patients seeking cures would enter the abaton, a sacred dormitory where the walls curved to amplify specific frequencies. As they slept, priests would chant or play instruments tuned to harmonic intervals, their voices bouncing off parabolic ceilings designed to focus vibrations onto the sick. The results, inscriptions detail miraculous recoveries, with patients awakening from vivid dreams of Asclepius offering remedies, dreams modern neuroscientists now recognize as trance states induced by rhythmic sound and infrasound. But the genius of these temples wasn't just in their acoustics, it was in their materials. The floors were often lined with copper sheets, a metal known to conduct vibrations efficiently, while the walls contained quartz-rich sandstone that amplified therapeutic frequencies. Recent experiments recreating these spaces found that tones between 60 and 120 Hz, the same range used in modern sound therapy, reduced stress hormones and boosted immune responses. Even more striking, the temple's underground chambers acted as natural filters, removing dissonant high frequencies and leaving only the soothing, low hums that promote deep relaxation. The practice wasn't unique to Greece. In Egypt's Temple of Hathor at Dendera, patients underwent sound baths in chambers where hieroglyphs explicitly link specific musical notes to organ healing. The Chinese Bianzhong bells, cast 2,500 years ago, were tuned to frequencies traditional medicine associated with meridian points. And in Peru, the Chavin de Huanta's conch shell trumpets weren't just ritual objects, their low drones matched the resonant frequency of the human chest cavity, a technique now used in pulmonary therapy. What's truly revelatory is how these ancient healers mapped sound to the body. The Asclepians' treatment rooms were often shaped like organs, kidney-shaped chambers for renal ailments, helical spaces for respiratory issues, each geometry calibrated to reinforce frequencies that affected those tissues. Modern studies confirm this isn't pseudoscience. Ultrasound breaks up kidney stones, and specific vibrations can stimulate lung function. The ancients may not have understood cellular biology, but they grasped something profound, that the body, like a finely tuned instrument, responds to harmonic intervention. Perhaps the most compelling evidence lies in the temple's silence. Unlike other sacred sites filled with art depicting gods or battles, healing sanctuaries feature carvings of ears. Not mouths, not eyes, ears. A silent testament to their belief that listening, truly listening, was the path to wellness. Today, as hospitals adopt music therapy and researchers study how chanting repairs neural pathways, we're not discovering something new. We're remembering what these stone chambers never forgot, that healing begins with resonance, and sometimes the oldest medicine isn't a pill or a potion, but a vibration. In the whispering sands of Egypt's Siwa oasis, the most powerful voice wasn't the loudest, it was the quietest. The oracle of Ammon, consulted by Alexander the Great himself, delivered prophecies not with booming declarations, but with hushed breaths that forced listeners to lean in, to strain every sense. This wasn't a quirk of personality, it was deliberate acoustics. The temple's inner sanctum, carved from resonant limestone, amplified soft speech while dampening echoes, transforming whispers into intimate revelations. The effect was profound. In that charged silence, even the rustle of a priestess's robes or the distant cry of a desert bird took on divine significance. Halfway across the world, the Maya took silence even further. During the Wayeb ceremonies, the 5 ominous days marking the end of their calendar year, entire cities fell into a ritual hush. No drums, no flutes, not even the grinding of corn in stone mortars. Archaeologists studying Kapon's hieroglyphic stairway found carvings depicting nobles with fingers pressed to lips, a universal gesture for quiet that transcended cultures. But this wasn't just about reverence. Recent studies of Maya ceremonial chambers reveal something startling. Their plaster walls contain microscopic voids that absorb sound waves like modern acoustic foam. In these spaces, silence wasn't passive, it was engineered, a vacuum where the slightest heartbeat would echo like a drum. Why go to such lengths? Neuroscience offers clues. In complete silence, the brain's auditory cortex doesn't shut down. It hyperactivates, searching for patterns in the absence of noise. This phenomenon, called auditory pareidolia, explains why we hear phantom music in white noise or imagine whispers in empty rooms. For ancient priests, this neural quirk may have been a tool. In the Temple of the Sun at Palenque, where silence was strictly enforced during solstice rites, the sudden drip of water from hidden channels or the creak of a wooden effigy moving in the dark would have seemed like voices from the spirit world. The absence of sound didn't dull the senses, it sharpened them into razor focus. The power of ritual silence extended beyond temples. In Japan's Ai's Grand Shrine, rebuilt every 20 years in exacting silence, the only sounds permitted were the creak of ropes lifting sacred timbers and the shuffle of straw sandals on bare earth. This wasn't just piety, it was physics. By eliminating ambient noise, every footstep, every breath became part of the ritual's rhythm, synchronizing participants' movements into a living meditation. Similarly, the Navajo night chant ceremonies included prolonged silences where the only sound was the crackle of a fire, a practice modern therapists now use to treat PTSD, as the brain processes trauma more effectively in quiet intervals between sounds. Perhaps the most haunting examples come from underground. In Crete's Psychro Cave, a Minoan sanctuary where oracles once prophesied, visitors describe an oppressive stillness so profound it feels like pressure on the eardrums. The cave's unique geology, porous limestone over dense basalt, creates a natural sound barrier, sealing off the inner chambers from all external noise. Here, initiates underwent deafness rituals, spending nights in total silence before emerging to interpret the slightest natural sounds as messages from the gods. It was a form of auditory reset, where silence became the canvas upon which every subsequent sound painted divine meaning. What unites these traditions is a recognition that silence isn't empty, it's a space waiting to be filled with intention. The oracle of Siwa's whispers carried further than shouts because they demanded absolute attention. The Maya's silent days heightened awareness of celestial events, the first chirp of a bird at dawn, the wind shifting direction turning nature into an oracle. Even today, when we enter a soundproof room or the quietest place on earth, we don't experience true silence. We hear our own bodies, blood pulsing, joints creaking, the phantom ring of tinnitus. The ancients understood this intimately, that in the absence of external noise we finally hear ourselves, and sometimes in that vulnerable space between breaths, we might just hear something greater. Modern experiments in sonic archaeology are turning ancient whispers into measurable proof. At Malta's Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, researchers armed with laser vibrometers, devices that detect microscopic vibrations, discovered something astonishing. When a male voice chants at 110 Hz inside the oracle chamber, the sound doesn't just echo. It lingers, bouncing between the walls for nearly 12 seconds, a phenomenon audio engineers call reverberation tail. This isn't just an acoustic quirk, it's a carefully engineered effect. The chamber's elliptical shape and quartz-lined walls act like a natural amplifier, tuning the space to a frequency known to shift brain activity into meditative states. Teams from the University of Malta recreated the chamber's dimensions in a lab, confirming that even slight deviations in the curvature disrupt this sacred resonance. The builders didn't just carve a room, they tuned it like an instrument. Meanwhile, in Peru's Andes, archaeologists are using 3D sound mapping to decode the secrets of Chavin de Huanta. By placing dozens of microphones throughout the temple's labyrinthine tunnels, they've reconstructed how conch shell trumpets would have sounded during rituals. The results are chilling. When played in the gallery's narrow passages, the trumpet's low drones create a disorienting audio maze where sound seems to come from all directions at once. Even more eerie, the frequencies match the resonant pitch of the temple's granite walls, meaning the entire structure would have vibrated like a colossal gong. Stanford's researchers took it further, strapping accelerometers to volunteers' heads as they listened. The data showed the vibrations reached the inner ear not just through air, but through bone conduction, literally making worshippers feel the sound in their skulls. But perhaps the most ambitious experiment unfolded at England's Stonehenge. Using computational acoustic modeling, a team from the University of Salford rebuilt the entire monument virtually, not just the standing stones, but the missing lintels and bluestones too. Then they played the digital model with Neolithic instruments. The discovery, the original layout before stones were moved or lost, created perfect interference patterns. Drum beats from the center would have bounced off the sarcens, producing phantom echoes that seemed to emerge from empty air. Even more intriguing, the blue stones, when struck with mallets, emitted tones that harmonized with the summer solstice sunrise's angle, suggesting the site wasn't just aligned with the sun, but with sound. Labs are now pushing beyond replication. In Japan, researchers are testing if ultrasonic frequencies could have softened andesite at Ollantaytambo, using vibrations to temporarily alter the stone's crystalline structure. Early results show promise. After 15 minutes of targeted ultrasonic exposure, andesite samples became marginally more pliable, supporting Inca legends of singing rocks. Elsewhere, architects are applying ancient acoustic principles to modern buildings. A concert hall in Norway, inspired by the Hypogeum's resonance, uses limestone mixed with quartz to enhance cello performances with the same eerie sustain as Maltese temples. What's emerging isn't just a new understanding of the past, but a lost science of sound. These weren't random sonic effects. They were calculated technologies as precise as any modern engineering. As we peel back the layers, one experiment at a time, we're not just hearing history. We're learning to listen the way our ancestors did with our bones, our breath, and the very stones beneath our feet. The idea of ancient sound technology sparks fascination, but it also attracts myths that blur the line between science and sensationalism. Take the infamous pyramid power claims from the 1970s, where enthusiasts swore placing objects inside scale-modeled pyramids preserved food or sharpened razor blades. While intriguing, controlled studies found no measurable effect beyond placebo. Yet buried in the hype lies a kernel of truth. The Great Pyramid's chambers do exhibit unusual electromagnetic properties, and certain frequencies do behave differently within its geometry. The myth got the mechanism wrong but stumbled onto a real phenomenon, an important reminder that even debunked theories can point toward genuine mysteries. Then there's the legend of Memnon's singing statues in Egypt. For centuries, travelers reported one of the colossi of Memnon emitting haunting tones at dawn, which Roman-era inscriptions claim Emperor Hadrian himself heard. Modern analysis reveals a simpler explanation. Morning sunlight heating dew-filled cracks in the weathered stone created steam bursts that whistled like a tea kettle. But here's the twist. The statues were originally part of a larger temple complex designed to amplify ritual chants. The singing may have been accidental, but the acoustics surrounding it were anything but. More troubling are outright hoaxes, like the infamous Sumerian spacecraft carvings falsely linked to ultrasonic technology. Yet even these fabrications sometimes obscure legitimate discoveries. In the 1990s, a dubious claim about Babylonian sound levitation overshadowed the real work of archaeologists at who found copper resonators embedded in temple walls, devices that genuinely enhanced priestly orations. This pattern repeats throughout sonic archaeology. For every viral fantasy about lost-frequency weapons, there's a verified artifact like the 2,000-year-old Chinese Bianzhong bells, whose precise tuning still matches modern scales. The challenge lies in discerning intent. When Malta's Hypogeum was first studied, early reports exaggerated its echoes as supernatural, ignoring the builder's demonstrable understanding of resonance physics. Similarly, New Age claims about Stonehenge's healing vibrations often overlook its provable function as a seismic detector. The blue stone's unique conductivity picks up earthquake tremors from miles away. The truth, as always, is more nuanced than the myths. So how do we separate fact from echo? Start with reproducibility. Claims like the Chichen Itza chirp hold up because anyone can clap at the pyramid's base and hear the Quetzal bird mimicry. Contrast that with the singing stones of Ireland's Dromic Circle, a lovely folklore, but one that dissolves under spectral analysis showing no unusual acoustic properties. The most credible theories share three traits: physical evidence, tool marks, material science, ethnographic records, oral histories, ritual texts, and measurable phenomena frequency tests, 3D modeling. Perhaps the greatest myth of all is the assumption that ancient cultures couldn't have understood acoustics deeply. When researchers at MIT recreated a 2,000-year-old Greek hydraulic instrument called the hydraulis, they discovered its pipes produced frequencies that align with the golden ratio, a mathematical relationship the Greeks did document in music theory. The stones didn't need to sing on their own. The people who raised them already knew how to make them dance. The stones of the past still speak if we learn to listen. From the hum of Stonehenge's blue stones to the eerie echoes of Malta's Hypogeum, sound wasn't just an accident of ancient architecture, it was its silent architect. These builders didn't just shape rock, they orchestrated air itself, turning vibration into a tool as precise as any chisel. Imagine the awe of a Neolithic craftsman discovering that striking a certain stone made it ring clear as a bell, or the revelation that chanting in unison could make a massive block shudder as if weightless. These weren't just construction tricks, they were revolutions in how humanity interacted with the physical world. What's truly astonishing is how universal this knowledge was. Across continents and millennia, from the Maya's chirping pyramids to Greece's whispering theaters, cultures with no possible contact arrived at the same profound truth: that sound could move, measure, and even sanctify stone. The Hypogeum's oracle chamber, humming at 110 Hz to alter consciousness, shares an eerie kinship with Tibet's singing bowls, both harnessing frequencies that dance on the edge of hearing and feeling. These parallels suggest something profound: that acoustics wasn't just a science to these builders, but a language, a way to converse with the earth, the divine, and even time itself. Today, as laser scans and hydrophones reveal hidden harmonies in ancient walls, we're not just decoding ruins, we're recovering a lost sensory world. The Great Pyramid's infrasound, Delphi's seismic hymns, Carnac's wind-sung monoliths, each was a note in a grand, invisible symphony. And the instruments, human voices, flowing water, even the wind, all channeled through stone with geometric precision. This wasn't magic, it was mastery, an art form where every pillar and passage doubled as an instrument in a concert we're only now hearing faintly through the static of centuries. So the next time you walk among ruins, don't just look, close your eyes, cup your hands to the curve of a carved wall, hum a note and wait for the answer. These stones have been waiting millennia for someone to ask the right question. Press like if you're listening for their secrets, and subscribe to join us as we uncover more of history's silent songs. The past isn't just something we see, it's something we hear, and the encore is just beginning.